Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar, AutoCrib Software Cycle Counting. My name is Vivian Lee and I will be your presenter today. You have all joined this webinar in listen-only mode, which means that everyone is muted. You will have time at the end of today's session to submit your questions through the chat or question tool. The webinar is being recorded and a link to the video will be uploaded to the AutoCrib support portal. So you may go there and view it at any time. You may also download the cycle counting document under the download or handouts section of your panel. And this will be available throughout the webinar this morning. So you can download it at any time. So in today's webinar, we will walk through the AutoCrib client server software cycle counting module. We will create item or bin classification, generate the cycle count list, and update the physical count. A cycle count is an inventory management procedure where a small subset of inventory is counted on any given day. Cycle counts contrast with traditional physical inventory in that physical inventory stops operation at a facility and all items are counted, audited, and recounted at one time. So cycle counts are less disruptive to the daily operations. It provides an ongoing measure of inventory accuracy and procedure execution and can be tailored to focus on items with higher value or higher movement. The purpose of the inventory cycle counting module in the AutoCrib software is to aid in counting inventory on a regular basis, to keep track of what was counted and when, and very importantly, to prioritize which inventory should be counted. Verifying inventory totals is critical to avoid stockouts and aids in accounting purposes. In today's webinar, we will walk through utilizing the AutoCrib software to first create your item or bin classification. Second, generate the cycle count list. And finally, update the physical counts in the AutoCrib software. So I will begin by pulling up the AutoCrib software. I'm going to log in. And the cycle count module is under the inventory menu. I'm going to navigate to inventory and click on cycle counting. There are two tabs at the bottom. The first is the cycle count tab and the ABC analysis tab. So we always begin with the ABC analysis tab first. And then we're going to click the Edit button to start creating our bin or item classification. So the first thing we need to determine is whether the historical data will be analyzed by item or by bin. So for an item-based system such as AutoCrib's, selecting item would be ideal. And you can select it by checking the checkbox on the top next to ABC Analysis By. And then for a bin-based system such as tool rooms, RDUs, and Elevens, selecting bin, the bin checkbox would be ideal. So you would insert a check mark next to either item or bin in the ABC Analysis By field. Next, you will need to set the analysis type. Under the Set Analysis Type box, you have 4 options. or 4 different ways of analyzing the item or bin historical data. So the first one is issues, which is the number of issues. So it determines the number of issues completed in a specified look-back period. Then the second option here is the velocity, which is the number of issues times the package quantity. So the total number of items issued times the package quantity in the specified look-back period. The third option is the average investment, or average value of inventory. So this determines the value of all unconsumed inventory in the entire AutoCrib system. And the calculation that's being used is quantity times the unit price. And the last and fourth option on here is the sales revenue, which is the velocity times the unit price, which is the total value of the total items issued. So the calculation is issues times pack quantity times unit price to determine the value of consumed inventory. All of these are calculated using a historical time period chosen by the customer. So the customer has a choice of 30 days, 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. So for this demo, I'm going to select the velocity. And for the set look back period, I will set to 1 year. One note I would like to make here that you need to have the historical data in the AutoCrib software. So if you're selecting 1 year, you need to have at least 1 year data recorded in the AutoCrib software. So then we have the analysis types here under Define Classes. These are used to derive values that are then compared against a user-defined set of criteria or classes. So the classes can range from A through F. So we have A all the way through F. And the purpose of defining classes for a set of items is to count the A and B classes more often than C, D, E, and F classes. So for example, if there are high moving items in the AutoCrib system, the inventory counts should be counted more often for these items because there is a higher potential for error in the highly used bins, and these items are more critical to ensure the manufacturing plant continues to produce parts. The items or bins that meet the criteria of the classes can then be set with a counting frequency, thus prioritizing the order of classes of items or bins to count. The result of the analysis can then be viewed in the number of items column, as well as in the cycle count tab. So since I've selected velocity here, I'm going to define my different classes as the number of issues. So I'm going to set Class A to 50 issues, Class B to 25, Class C to 10, Class D to 5, Class E to 1, and Class F would be items that have not been issued. And then defining the count frequency here, I can either enter a number of days for the frequency of the count or the number of months by using the drop down here, the days or months drop down. So this will prioritize the order of classes of items or bins to count. So for Class A, I'm going to count every 7 days. Class B, I'm going to count every 30 days. Class C, every 90 days. Class D, every 170 days. Class E, every 200 days. And Class F, every 360 days. And this is all user-defined fields. So you can set the frequency however you like it. So once you have entered all the information, the ABC analysis by, you've selected your analysis type, you've defined your classes, you defined the count frequency and set the look back period, you are now ready to run your analysis. So here at the bottom, there's 2 checkboxes, the reassign all items. This is the default. But if you would like to only classify new items, you would choose the classify only new items checkbox. But the default is set to reassign all items. So now we are ready to run our analysis. So we're going to click the Run Analysis button. And we will receive a confirmation box to reassign the ABC class for all items. We click yes, and then it's going to go ahead and run our analysis. So when our analysis is ran, you will now be able to review the number of items that were assigned to each class. So I have 504 items in Class A, 231 items in Class B, 440 items in Class C, etc. So now I can go ahead and click on the Cycle Count tab. Because we have now completed creating our item or bin classification. So we're going to go ahead and generate the cycle count list. So to generate the cycle count list, we're going to click the Cycle Count tab. We're going to click Edit. And first we are going to use the crib drop-down to either select the crib in which you want to count the inventory, or you can select all to count the inventory in all the cribs. I'm going to use the default all, and then you would need to use the class drop-down to select the class of items or bins that you want to count. So you can either select all, or you can select a specific class. I'm going to leave it at all. And the last drop down here is, do you want to display all items to count, or only items that have passed their next count date, which is the next count equals or less than the current date. I want to count all the items. So once I've selected all the drop-downs, I will go ahead and click the Run button. And this will produce the cycle count list for me. So now if you want, at the bottom there is a checkbox, the Lock ABC Analysis Cycle Count in Progress checkbox. This checkbox will ensure that all items or bins are counted before the classes can be reassigned to items or bins. So what it does is it locks out the ABC Analysis tab and makes it a read-only tab. So no changes will be able to be made to that tab until this box is unchecked. So here, you may use the Export button to export the cycle count list into a text file. So I'm going to export it and save it to my desktop. So you'd have to give the file a name and then choose where you want to save it, and then click the Save button. So now I can go ahead and open up my text file. And here is a list of all my items. So it gives me a list of the crib, the bin, the item, the class, the on-hand quantity, the burn quantity, the last count date, and then the next count date. So this is a full list here. So these are all the items that are listed here in my AutoCrib cycle count tab. So you can go ahead and then you can print that text file, and you will start performing a physical count of the items or bins. And then you can record any discrepancies on your printed report. So then the last step would be to update the AutoCrib software with any discrepancies that were found during the physical count. So to physical a bin, from this screen, you can just select the item or bin that you would like to physical. And then you will click the physical button here on the right-hand side. And now you can enter the quantity that you wish to edit, either into the on-hand field or the burn quantity field. I'm going to change the on-hand to 0. Click OK to save. But before we click OK, there's also a comment box, so you can make a comment as to why you made changes to the physical quantity. And these comments will show up on the physical history comments report, physical history by crib comments report, and physical history by item comments report. And all of these reports may be found under the inventory report category. So once you've completed updating the on-hand or burn quantities and entering a comment, you can go ahead and click OK. And once you do that, the last count field date will update, as well as the next count field. So when all your bins have been verified and updated, if you got a chance to go through all the bins, you can just click on, and you've made all your changes. You can now click on Select All to highlight all the items. And then you would click the Stamp Count Date. So this will then update the last count field to today's date, and it will populate the next count date as well. However, if you did not get a chance to physical all the bins, you can use either the Shift key on the keyboard to highlight a whole section of items or bins, And then you can click the stamp count date to update that that selection. Or you can use the control key on the keyboard to select a group of items or bins. And you can update them again all at once by clicking the stamp count date button. And again, the stamp count date button will just update the last count to the current date, and it will reset the next count date as well. So now there are several reports that you may utilize for cycle count. So let's take a look at some of those reports. And to view them, we will navigate to Reports. And click on Standard. And we are going to select the Inventory Report category. So from here, there are a couple of reports, the ABC analysis by bin and the ABC analysis by item. So if you set your analysis by item, you would want to preview the ABC analysis by item report. And this gives you a list of all your items, description 1 and description 2, sorted by their class. So these are all my Class A items and Class B items, Class C, etc. If I were to set my analysis by bin, I can run the analysis by bin report. And this report takes a little bit longer to load because there are a lot of bins in this database. And then some other reports we are going to take a look at are the cycle count by bin, cycle count by item, cycle count by item vending, cycle count sheet by ABC class blind, and cycle count sheet by ABC class verified. So there's a lot of reports that you can use that will help you with your cycle counting. Some of these reports are used if you selected the bin analysis, and some are for the item. We're still waiting on this report to populate. So this report is the ABC analysis by bin, and it will display the station number, the bin, and then the item. And the reason it says ABC class field is empty is because we use the item for our analysis. But if you were to use the bin for your analysis, then this will be sorted by the ABC class. So you have your ABC analysis by bin report, ABC analysis by item, and then we have the cycle count by bin tool room. And this report shows all bins for tool rooms grouped by the ABC class. So you can use this report to take note of your inventory when you're performing a cycle count. So as you're performing your cycle count, you can just write down the numbers on this printed report. And again, the reason it says ABC class field is empty here is because we used the item analysis. But if we were to use the bin analysis, then it will group them by the ABC class. So here it shows you the bin, the item, the description, on-hand quantities, burn quantities. And here you can write down the actual or correct counts. Another report here, this is for item-based, so cycle count by item. And this will show all items and bins grouped by the ABC class and then by the item. So you can use this report to take note of inventory when you're performing a cycle count as well. So again, this is grouped by the ABC analysis. So these are all items that are assigned to class A. And it breaks it down by item. It shows you what crib and then what item, on-hand quantity, total quantity, and then you can write down the actual quantities on this report. Another report that we have here is the cycle count by item vending. This is a bin-based report, so it will show all bins for vending machines, grouped by bin. So that is why our ABC class is empty here. Then we have the cycle count sheet by ABC class blind. Again, this is a bin-based report. So normally you would see your ABC class right here above the next count date. And then you have your bin, your item description. And the reason they call this report blind is because it does not give you the on-hand and burn quantities that are supposed to be in the bin. So that forces the user to count the items and then write down the number here to later compare with the AutoCrib system. And the last report on here is the cycle count sheet by ABC class verified. So this report shows all the bins in the system where the next count date is greater than or equal to today's date. And then this report also shows the current on-hand and burn quantity for the bins in the software. Again, this is a bin-based report. So that's why you see the ABC class blank over here. So these are all the reports that you can use, and you can print them. That will aid in your cycle count. And then again, to update or physical the quantities, you would just go back to your inventory menu, click the cycle counting. It defaults to your cycle count tab, click edit. And again, here you would have to select your cribs, the class, the method, and then click run. And to update, again, you would just highlight the item or bin, click the physical button, update your on-hand or burn, enter a comment, and then click OK to save. And if no changes are needed, you can either select all and then click the stamp count date, or use the Control key on your keyboard or the Shift key on your keyboard to select specific line items or group. Okay, so this concludes today's cycle counting webinar session. So I will now be available to answer any questions that you may have relating to today's webinar topic. So please feel free to use the message box to type and submit your questions. And if there are any questions that I am not sure about, I will email everyone that had attended today's session with the answers. And I will also post them on the forum. So while you are typing your questions, I would like to thank you for joining us today. And as you exit the webinar, you will be presented with a short survey. So please let us know how we did and what we may do in the future to make our webinars even better. And let's see if there's any questions. And there are. So let's open up this box.